Welcome back, silly geese quackers. We are here today to continue our look into whether the Catching Fire movie is in fact a great film adaptation. We're mostly focusing on whether the movie respects the characters and honors the spirit of the original text. And today we're going to be focusing on Snow's visit to the Everdeen house. To the Everdeens house we go.
Did you have a good walk, dear? Walk? I was just out.
We have visitors.
This is a small detail, but you'll notice that it's Prim that ultimately ends up warning Katniss that there's danger in the house. This is the first of several choices that we see throughout the film where Katniss's mom's role is minimized. In the book, when Katniss comes home, it's her mom that gives her the accuse that something isn't right. One of the themes quietly hiding in the background of Catching Fire is that this violence we see from the Capitol is cyclical. Therefore, the adults are already well versed at navigating this danger. We see Katniss's mom do this repeatedly in the early chapters of Catching Fire, when she communicates to Katniss that Gale and his family have been portrayed as her cousins, when she delays the escalation of Peeta and Katniss's relationship by saying that she's too young to have a boyfriend, and in this scene where she indicates that there's danger without saying it outright. Later, when the Peacekeepers burn down the Hob, Haymitch reassures Katniss of the other Hob people's safety by saying, "They're smarter than that. You'd be too if you'd been around longer." What we see through these consistent actions of various characters is that growing up in this system, you learn to communicate in code to keep you and the people close to you safe.
Miss Everdeen, this way, please.
Such bravery, such spirit, such contempt.
We also see that this opening with Snow is very different than what we see in the books. In the movie, he's standing, drinking tea, watching the end of the 74th games. By the way, I love the holograms. I think it's a really cool effect that they added. It allows them to show the audience a memory without getting stuck in any sort of flashback. Very effective. Love it. In the book, he's reading when she comes in and barely acknowledges her as she approaches. The way the power shows up in the scene is fundamentally different. The book shows that Snow has comfort in her home and a disregard for her presence. I also want to talk about how Snow is portrayed in this film, because this detail may be something we often overlook. First, I want to say the actor that plays Snow is great, but there is something fundamentally missing from his portrayal: his cosmetically enhanced lips. Katniss talks about his lips almost every time she sees Snow. In this scene, she says, "I'm expecting snake lips," which is to say none, but his are overly full. The skin stretched too tight. I have to wonder if his mouth has been altered to make him look more appealing. If so, it was a waste of time and money, because he's not appealing at all. This sounds like a fun, petty moment inside Katniss's head, but I'd like to argue that it's more meaningful than that. It's possible to read the fact that Snow has puffy lips as him being marked by the culture of the Capitol itself. It's easy to see Snow, especially in the original trilogy, and think of him as simply a villain. But if you look at his choices, how he poisons people to gain power and maintain it, and how he undergoes these alterations, you start to see that he's actually a pretty insecure person. His position is as precarious as the nation itself. We know that most Capitol people bow to the pressure to undergo such alterations, and that they expect others to do the same. Look at what the prep team says to Katniss. By portraying Snow without this alteration, Snow's being placed closer to someone like Cinna, who is noted to have no alterations besides gold eyeliner. So the version of Snow that we seem to get from the movies is more secure and more utilitarian, at least in presentation. Honestly, it's kind of similar to how the films portray the Capitol itself. Instead of the candy-colored buildings that the book describes, we got a utilitarian, sort of stark aesthetic for the Capitol. This may be because, as viewers, we expect authoritarianism to look more stark, more military-esque. Big picture, this affects how Collins shows us that authoritarianism or fascism, what have you, can look stark and military-esque like District 13, but it can also look like excess, like it does in the Capitol.
My dear, I think we can make this so much simpler if we agree not to lie to each other. What do you think?
Yes, I think that would save time.
I have a problem, Miss Everdeen. A problem that began the moment you revealed those poison berries in the arena. If that head game maker, Seneca Crane, had any brains at all, he would have blown you to bits then and there. But here you are. I expect you can guess where he is. And you were very good. That whole love-crazed, besotted schoolgirl routine. Impressive. Truly. You convinced the people in the Capitol. Unfortunately, not everyone in the districts fell for it. And if a girl from District 12, of all places, can defy the Capitol and walk away unharmed, what is to prevent them from doing the same? What is to prevent, say, an uprising that can lead to revolution? And then in a fraction of time, the whole system collapses.
It must be a fragile system if it can be brought down by just a few berries.
Yes, it is indeed. But not in the way you imagine it.
You might have noticed when Katniss came in that Snow already had tea and cookies. In the book, Katniss's mom actually brings them tea and cookies around this point in the conversation. This is another small shift, but its absence changes our first impression of Snow. First, let's read the scene, then we'll talk about why it matters. There's a knock at the door, and the Capitol man sticks his head in. Her mother wants to know if you want tea. I would like tea, says the president. The door opens wider, and there stands my mother, holding a tray with a china set she brought to the seam when she married. Set it here, please. What a welcome sight. You know, it's funny how often people forget that presidents need to eat too, President Snow says charmingly. Well, it seems to relax my mother a bit anyway. Can I get you anything else? I can cook something more substantial if you're hungry, she offers. No, this couldn't be more perfect, thank you, he says, clearly dismissing her. This is a moment where we glimpse Snow, not just as a threatening leader, but as a man who is socially gracious and charming. As we learn in Ballad, these traits are valuable in his world. Characterizing him as someone who recognizes the values of social skills is just as important as his puffy lips. They show a man shaped by a system, not just an evil villain or a ruthless dictator.
You fought very hard in the games, Miss Everdeen. But they were games. Would you like to be in a real war?
No.
Good. Neither would I.
Why don't you just kill me now?
I don't want to kill you. I want us to be friends. But if not friends, then allies.
This moment bothers me so much. Let's back up a little bit. In the movie, we just saw Katniss ask why he doesn't kill her, and he says that he doesn't want to kill her, he wants to be allies. Now we're gonna look at that same conversation in the book. Why don't you just kill me now? I blurt out. Publicly, he asks. That would only add fuel to the flames. Arrange an accident then, I say. Who would buy it? He asks. Not you, if you were watching. This is an entirely different conversation than what we see happen in the movies. Movie Snow seems to see her as a figure that could potentially calm the district. A potential ally, maybe. In the book, though, when he asks her to convince the districts, he's more focused on how she functions as a symbol, rather than her own capacity. And, as Katniss discovers through the Victory Tour, she doesn't actually have the power or the position to calm what's happening in the districts. And she suspects that Snow already knew that. So, why does Book Snow ask her to convince the districts? We actually get the answer for this in the final conversation between them in Mockingjay. I was watching you, Mockingjay, and you were watching me. I'm afraid we've both been played for fools. While in that moment he's talking about coin strategy, I think that the reason he's able to recognize it so quickly is it's a strategy he used himself against Katniss. If he lets her spiral about whether her behavior is actually protecting her people for all of the Victory Tour, she can't very well cause more trouble, can she?
What do I need to do?
When you and Peter are on tour, you need to smile. You need to be grateful. But above all, you need to be madly prepared to end it all in love. You think you can manage that?
Yes.
Yes, what?
I'll convince them.
No. Convince me. For you, Miss Everdeen.
I love that he gives her a rose here because we're not in her head in the movie. We can't see how disgusted she is by the mix of the smell of blood and roses that she can't quite figure out. They didn't directly reference it here, but having him give her a rose is sort of a nod to her experience of that, and I really appreciate that.
Do convince me. For the sake of your loved ones.
This is where the film tells us that it fundamentally misunderstands what this conversation and its relationship to the kiss even are. Again, I love the holograms. In the last video in the series, we talked about how the film misrepresented the kiss by having it happen in town, under sort of situation-shippy circumstances. In the book, we see Gale kiss her near a hole in the fence close to the hob, and Gale kisses her without warning and without consent. Then he leaves. Now, let's talk about how Snow handles this revelation in the books. Because, believe it or not, it's not a hologram recording. I wouldn't be here if I were the only person who had doubts. How's the handsome cousin? I don't know. My revulsion at this conversation, at discussing my feelings for two of the people I care most about with President Snow, chokes me off. Speak, Miss Everdeen. Him I can easily kill off if we don't come to a happy resolution, he says. You aren't doing him a favor by disappearing into the woods with him each Sunday. Then Katniss wonders what all Snow knows about her relationship with Gale, and she thinks about whether it's possible informants told on her or whether there are cameras watching the fence or the woods, and obviously she doesn't know any of that. Then she fills the reader in on what happened with the kiss before realizing gradually that she's been putting everyone at risk by icing Peeta out and continuing to hang out with Gale. Please don't hurt Gale, I whisper. He's just my friend. He's been my friend for years. That's all that's between us. Besides, everyone thinks we're cousins now. I'm only interested in how it affects your dynamic with Peeta, thereby affecting the mood in the districts, he says. I don't watch him as he heads for the door, so I flinch when he whispers in my ear. By the way, I know about the kiss. Let's talk about how his hinting at the knowledge before outright revealing it shows who Snow is as a politician and a person. He tells her what he knows about her relationship to Gale, but he doesn't tell her how, or whether it was from informants or camera. We, as the readers, don't know that, and neither does she. Then, he tells her about the kiss, and again, not how. The kiss was near the fence, so someone could have seen them. Or there could be cameras around, watching who comes in and out. We don't know. That leaves Katniss unsure of who she can trust, and unsure of where she actually has privacy. Want to know what does not do that? Showing a hologram of the kiss. This hologram tells Katniss where the camera is and what angle it's looking at. It also suggests that she wasn't informed on the streets are being recorded. That's a very different strategy politically, and honestly, a less smart one. That wraps up part 2 of the series on whether Catching Fire is a great film adaptation. In this part, we've discussed how they're shifting some of the role of Katniss's mom to Prim and how that affects how we understand the long-term effects of systemic violence in Panem. And we've also discussed how they're changing who Snow is as a person and a politician. Though these are small shifts in this pretty short scene, they do cause how the oppression and violence in Panem exists structurally to drift a bit within the story. Next time we'll take a look at the beginning of the Victory Tour. I hope you'll join us, Quackers.